I'm gonna be honest with you, I do not think that's accurate, because I've had people say before, they're like, oh, I'd love to, have a drink with you, and I'd love if you ran a tour, I'd love if you taught me more about this, and I'm like, well, here's the thing. I am not a professional. I'm an enthusiast at most who, I really, really enjoy bourbon. I enjoy my whiskey. I mean, obviously I wouldn't have this much if I didn't enjoy it, right? I've done 2 tours in my life. They were not for whiskey, probably for the best. One of which I did a ton of research in order to introduce the sights of Prague to my husband when we went there on a trip. And I remembered none of it. And so I think I started making stuff up halfway through, which was unfortunate. And then another tour that I ran was when I took my parents to Trinity College here in Dublin, and I remembered 75% of the information and then filled in the blanks myself. That one I'm pretty sure was still accurate, but I filled in the blanks with my own feelings. Just say I don't know how much you would learn from me, technically speaking. For example, the Teeling Single Malt Crystal. If I was to introduce this to you right now, I would be saying, so this is the Teeling Single Malt Crystal. I am so excited about this because this uses a very cool process that's not used in a lot of whiskeys. And I know for a fact that this is the first single malt crystal malt whiskey in Ireland. I don't know if it's anywhere else. I didn't look at that. I don't know if it's blended anywhere in Ireland. I don't know that either. But what I do know is that they take the malted barley and they add extra heat, and they do like extra heat, like the torches when you're like doing the creme brulees, right? And they go psh, and then the top of the creme brulee gets all like crispy and crackly, and then you go like, and then you have your creme brulee, right? Well, they do that here. It's crystal malt. So they add the extra heat and all the sugars go and crystallize, and that makes crystal malt. And then they use that to make the whiskey. And it reminds me a lot of when you have like ice wine and they let it freeze, and then it's extra thick and flavorful, almost like syrupy. And they do the same thing with that wine. I can't remember the name of it right now. Vinsanto, the one in Greece, where they take it and then they let the grapes like raisin dry on the vines, and then they make the wine, which is like the reverse ice wine, and then it adds the extra, like, again, kind of syrupy, like delicious sweetie flavor. So that's kind of like this. You're just adding extra stuff to make that extra sweet kind of syrupy, malty goodness. I will look at the cheater's notes for 1 second, because how many of these did they make? It does not say, actually. Fabulous. But I was correct about how it's made. It says it has distinct toffee-like flavors from the resulting whiskey when the sugars are formed during the traditional malting process and they're crystallized with extra heat. So I was actually technically correct on that. Woo! But I will say that I was at Whiskey Live last year, and I went in and they were just like, here's our master distiller. He just pulled stuff out of the locker. Try and tell if it's good. And we got to try this one, and they just like yanked it out of the locker. He's like, should we sell that? And we're like, yeah! And then they sold it. And I don't know if they planned it in advance. We're doing that just to raise the hype, or whether they actually listened to us, but I felt heard. That's how a tour with me kind of goes. It's just ADHD confusion, and maybe the facts are correct. So let's not ask for that, shall we?